But for like the platinum armor, the Hermes sandal, I don't know how you +6 those without buying this. Like you bought this, right? For your platinum armor, you had to have. No? What?
No,
Really? Have you been playing free match
no.
since day one? You had to have been. Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Another week. Sorry for skipping out on last week. I'm back from vacation. JB and I here for episode 31. Really great night to do it. We have so much to talk about. I don't even like, not even sure where to start. But for now, just a quick hello. How you doing, JB?
Doing good. Glad to get back to it. We kind of took a little break there. Glad to have you back. Glad that you had some time off to relax with family and friends. And it's a good week to be back because there's a surprise for us in game. So glad we can get to it and talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. So just recapping real quickly tonight what we're going to go through, it's going to be Helena the Black Rose. She's the new character coming to Global simultaneous to JP. A little bit about Final Fantasy IX and Vivi now that we've seen his kit more in depth. A little bit more on Zidane and Dagger that they've kind of settled in. We've seen more of them. Content updates in terms of new banners that has come out, the limited Guild War quick pick, 5 times arena and free match, always just a special mention because we love those medals. And then there's a bunch of quality of life and game updates. We'll go through those. We're going to look at the War Room in terms of meta and examining some of the MA2s and how they affect characters that we think are actually pretty good, quite honestly. A lot of these MA2s lately have been kind of, not the best, but we'll see if we can talk through that. And then we have a load of great Q&A that I know is just like ripe for some good conversation. So without further ado, yeah, Helena the Black Rose coming in here is kind of a surprise, sliding in ahead of what we thought might be the Asterisk of the past. Are you surprised by this, or did you kind of think this is coming?
I thought that there was a chance that this would happen, but I honestly thought that Asterisk was going to be this week. I figured we would go into Asterisk, then the Esper Vision card, then we would go into Final Fantasy IX to kind of kick off December, and then at that point, I guess they kind of wanted to get this in now because they want to kind of celebrate fourth anniversary with JP and kind of we have gotten some very good banners here, including hopefully that continues tomorrow. But yeah, it seems like they really want to bring forth this story, and I'm excited for it.
Me too. I definitely initially wasn't surprised, but I was talking with someone on the Orange J Discord server actually that we've had simultaneous releases before, but most of them tend to be like seasonal units where
Right.
there's a Halloween, like Lucio, for instance, or Summer Helena. I know Summer Killfay was big, but this is the first like non-seasonal unit. This is a permapool unit that was kind of pushed forward, and to that extent, I actually was kind of surprised. Not necessarily, sure from the ashes of the past, but even in terms of filling in some of that, let's say, dead time before the Final Fantasy IX collab, where I know people have been looking for that Pixel remaster. There's still a couple, Bronwell and other characters that we're just kind of waiting for one of those dead weeks to come. And this seemed like
Yeah.
it could be another candidate. I know this last week we thought it could be as well. But yeah, they're really pushing it forward, and it does make sense from the fourth Annie perspective. But yeah, my Vizio stash is certainly not ready for that. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I would imagine you're in the same boat.
I mean, there's been a lot that's come as of late. I mean, we have had some big characters. I mean, we've talked about it in past weeks. I mean, I have some viz that I can pull. Hopefully, there's going to be some good deals and packs. Hopefully, they'll stock us up. I know that we're not due for like a special shop refresh, but maybe they could hook us up. It would certainly be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I am obviously, those hollow vision cards are a pretty penny, and so expecting those to come and what I have to do to manage Viz to get there, yeah, this is certainly going to put an early dent in that before the Final Fantasy IX cards. But we'll talk more about those. Have you looked at a little bit about what her kit has been teased so far? I know she's, I think, live in JP today. People have been doing
Yeah.
streams. Any initial impressions so far?
So I hung out on Odaiba's stream earlier today. So shout out to him. He did his pulls. He had to pity, so that was pretty rough. But he was showing off the unit a little bit. So when somebody in his guild had her up at 140, like within a couple of hours, so he was kind of testing some various teams against her, and she looks very very good. I think the main difference for us is that we don't have Vivi yet. We don't have Vivi's hollow card, and I mean Vivi. I mean they're gonna go very very well together. Obviously, they're both black mage. The black mage group in general doesn't have like I would say the greatest units at the moment. The most recent one has been Lena, which was kind of a flop.
Right.
Before that, I mean, Dark Fina, she's still pretty solid. I think that she could work well with Fina. But aside from that, it's kind of slim pickings in that group until we get Vivi. And that vision card, I think, is one of the key ones for the group. I think as of now, I think people will probably be looking to play her in a mono light setup on global. I think that seems to make the most sense. Maybe you could still link into dark with Dark Fina, like with the Dark Bahamut card potentially, but
Right.
I really don't see a good team in the Black Mage group right now for her until Vivi comes along.
100%. It's funny you say that because we were talking about that, and it kind of surprised me because I hadn't really thought about this class in quite some time. Because if you kind of rewind the clock like 6 months ago, this was a pretty solid group. You're talking about meta units at the time of Skull, Lemeray as a great like rainbow support, Ayaka as a great support, Dark Fina was top tier, and even Sakura was still seeing play in a lot of limited Guild War stuff, and even a little bit in main Guild War. I know there was a time where against that dark meta, Sakura was coming and doing some things, and it's so funny you say that because you're right. Right now, these characters seem like a blip in the past, and yeah, Vivi is a major character from what I can tell in terms of that rainbow esque element of branching out a little bit. And yeah, her kit looks absolutely stellar. It makes you want to cry how good it looks because I don't want to be premature, but they've given her a ton of penetrations right out of the gate for Spirit Pen and Magic Pen. They've given her that cool, unique mechanic of the Reflect, which obviously is huge given the amount of magic that we're seeing nowadays. Her Limit Break looks great, and she's got that similar to Astrius of the past, that AoE Imperil of sorts. That's like a percentage decrease. And that I think is a really good thing for the modern era of the game too. I think of that AoE Imperil as almost like AoE penetration in a sense, if that makes sense, because it functions kind of similar. It's basically just whatever your total resistance is, it just takes a percentage of it down, which is functionally how a penetration works. Now you have to
Yeah.
have that buff active, you have to hit someone, so it's an extra step. But still, she's got that re-raise, and she can grant or she can deny people re-raise remove if she hits it with it. She's got courage remove. Like my god, it's literally another character that's stacked with near everything.
I think that I like how they've been doing with the area resistance penetration, as you call it, because there is some counterplay to it. Like it's technically a debuff. There is debuff dispels in the game that can cleanse it.
Yep.
So it's not like an always on thing, like when the defense and slash res penetration was first introduced back into the game. It was just all of a sudden slash res and defense started to become irrelevant at that time. So at least this is obviously very strong. It's going to enable other characters that have great AOE's, like a VV, like a Winged Stern, like a Bartz, like a Addison Rave. There's a lot of great units that have been stifled a bit by the heavy area resistance that's gotten built up since Seth and Bradley first came into the game. We kind of went through that whole rigmarole. So I'm very excited for this unit. I think that she's got a couple different imperils. The LB you mentioned with the magic resist down and that area resist. She also has Vivi's mechanic. I've heard that she can dispel re-raise removal
Yes.
on hit, and then she also has a courage removal on hit
Yes.
for herself. So it's like stacked to the gills with like good utility there. The survivability, I think, is good enough that she can build up some nice strike resist and unit resistance. So she seems like she's primed to kind of take the mantle away from Saul and the Saul Eliot type combos. She kind of can do well against both of them.
Yep.
Um, whether she can do well against the Astrius unit, I think that still remains to be seen. She seemed to be doing pretty decently against him, and in the limited stuff I've seen so far. But he is a very strong magic bruiser, so maybe there is still kind of an open window for him to do something there.
Yeah, 100%. And you brought a lot of good points. I really don't have much to add. I know the current team with Shal's thrown into that mix and what she does for that courage too, for that dual courage. This is another great unit to throw into the mix to potentially counter a little bit of that. And the same thing with the reflect and the nature of how you can reflect some of these devastating attacks. It won't reflect both of them. If it's a select two, it'll only reflect the one that's on her. So your team is still going to get tossed around a little bit, but on paper, she kind of hits everything that I look for. And I have a general checklist in terms of like Spirit Pen, Magic Pen, what's her agility, what's the survivability, and so far she's hitting on all cylinders. And she's a permanent pool unit, which I actually really like. I do think Gumi is very smart at the moment. There's a piece of me, we'll kind of spoiler this for later. a piece of me that's really sad that a lot of these collabs have been relatively underwhelming. On the other hand, those are limited time things, and I think that's kind of killed the game for a while for a lot of new players. That if you missed a collab or missed a limited thing, you were kind of stuck out in the middle of nowhere without a way to, no recourse. But now there's so many permanent pool meta defining units in the vision cards that enable these rainbow teams that it is a character that you can still wait on, I'm sure, and slow build, and there is a hollow VC that we'll talk about in a second here that's coming out that I'm sure will likely also be a perma pool, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a anniversary gift. But yeah, either way, I think it's a solid addition.
Yeah, the vision card that comes tomorrow is an anniversary gift. I saw that on the stream today, so it's a free holo VC. It's going to be similar to some of the anniversary cards we've gotten in the past that have like the JP bonus for equipping it on the units, but it does have that hollow effect on there, which is kind of cool. The additional party effect, I think, is a 25 Esper killer for quest modes.
Oh, okay,
And
yep.
then like the hollow mastery, which is like the always on bonus effect. It gave 25% bonus JP and then 5% attack value.
Okay,
So pretty cool, pretty
yeah.
cool. So everybody's going to get that hollow bonus. Great for guild raids, great for quests and different PVE stuff. So I'm excited about that. Well, I think there is going to be another card coming for her. Probably we'll get that next week, which is going to be probably like a gotcha based hollow card, and we'll see what the pricing is for us here on Global.
100%. I think that's the one that's really going to open up the doors because nowadays it's what other classes are on those vision cards that really kind of define what the future of the unit is, and just their longevity, if you know what I mean. So I'm definitely holding out for that one. But so far,
I think
yeah,
I think on that note of vision cards though, the black mage, like we talked a little bit about the units in the black mage group. At least right now, it's okay, not great. The vision cards though are on point. Like really nice vision cards for the black mage group. They've got all the effects covered, agility, unit resist, and multiple cards to do it. So um, especially once that VV card comes along here for us in a few weeks.
absolutely. And I just brought it up on screen just because it is a good visual reference. And props to you for still maintaining this. This is rivaling wotv calc for me in terms of usefulness nowadays. I love this. But yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of different cards here for agility options, for unit res, for magic res, or I'm sorry, area res, that they will have lots of opportunities to be able to put it across these rainbow teams. Yeah, absolutely some good upside here for that class for sure.
Especially that great demon card continues to be a key pickup here. So if that's one you're still working on,
Absolutely.
definitely invest some monthly medals into that one.
Most definitely, absolutely, yes. And as we kind of segue, if you want, I think that's all we were really looking for Helena the Black Rose. But Final Fantasy IX with Vivi in particular, just kind of continuing that convo of the new Black Mage group. Vivi as a character, have you looked at his kit at all? Do you have any strong thoughts about him yet?
So I think that overall this collaboration is pretty good. I think comparing it to eight, the units overall I think are stronger overall and in a better place. I don't think that they're meta units though. I think that these are enabler. These are like an A tier to if Helen is going to be that S unit, Vivi is going to be that key A unit that you compare with her, that enabler. Because even like his main niche, which was kind of to protect re-raise on himself and his teammates, Helena is now getting that.
Right.
So I think that at the end of the day, I think that's a good thing. As much of a bummer it is for people that really love this character, I think it is better for those meta units to be permanent
Yep.
because then they're questable, then anybody can get them. Then you can always off banner them. You can wait a few weeks and use your banked up tickets to pull them. It feels much worse when maybe you missed out on Sephiroth or you missed out on Yuffie and you just can't get them, so.
I 100% agree. Absolutely. Yeah, I've looked at Vivi. He looks good, but I agree. He's that A tier unit. He's not a unit that's worthy of that extra Visior expenditure if you're stretching yourself thin. He's got a lot of good things about him in terms of his cast time. They were really smart with that, but then again, cast time's kind of subjective. They could have just done away with any of that if they wanted to. Like it's either way, they've checked that box. The magic attack penetration, I think, is there. He's getting 20 innately, another 40 on a buff. So again, checking those boxes. In terms of passives, yeah, he's got a lot of single target res here, 12%. He's got an auto revive on himself, on a passive and an HP restore when it falls below a certain amount of health. He's also got a great passive here that's tied to his spirit pen for agility of 12%. But yeah, when you're talking about like what do you look for, he's got a lot of seemingly good bulk, which is kind of a standard for most mages now that we didn't used to see. He does have a decrease of elemental chain risk, which I think is really interesting, considering that's a element related thing that you're talking about a mono dark team, which I could still see, but kind of odd for a newer unit to get that. But then again, that does technically increase his own damage on his double hit that he has. But yeah,
Well,
yeah,
one thing I'll say about that is mages or magic attacks, they can only chain on
elemental,
on elemental.
correct.
And this actually combos perfectly with Raph's Limit Burst, which extends the chain. So it's like a wombo combo that they can do together, where Raph, she'll often lead off with that Limit Burst or use it relatively early in the fight if people are grouped up. He can then come in with this, it's a big diamond AoE, hit them and parallel them for that chain resistance. And then everybody can then follow up and start doing more damage, at least on the elemental side.
Absolutely.
So I think
Yeah.
it's actually pretty cool. One note also on his innate re-raise, it can still be dispelled, so it's not like a Skahal situation where you just can't dispel this thing. So that's good that we don't have that going on.
Yeah.
That 50% heal back, it will trigger, like if he gets one shot, it will trigger when he gets re-raised. You know, we've seen that in the past with Zoma as well, if you had like the zombie TMR on him.
Yep.
So yeah, I think he's also got kind of the accuracy angle covered. He's got a cross AoE guaranteed hit, which is pretty nice for him because his accuracy, like most other mages, isn't very good. So
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot of things checked off the list that you like to see.
100%. The one thing that's missing that I think keeps him on that A tier for me is the lack of any of these aura abilities that we're seeing more of, and not even aura, sequence abilities too. Both either or. A lot of these amazing characters are getting these great aura abilities or sequence abilities that have some extremely overpowering, not overpowering, but extremely beneficial secondary effects. And him not having that, he really is this kind of like do damage and live kind of unit, which has worked. Not all of them work, but he seems like one that certainly could. His stats are there.
He doesn't have the select like unit attacks like we've been seeing on a lot of units lately. He does have like the big area of like the big diamond damage, which when you think about what Helena can do in lowering that area resistance, they really are designed to work, you know, perfectly together.
Yep.
And you know, she is going to enable him to do huge damage. The LB though is really interesting because it has that high chance to stun,
Yes.
and that is one that's difficult to cover. You know, not a lot of units have innate stun resistance. There are a couple of TMRs that you can look at. Minwoo's TMR is one that I found. So
Yep.
might be a you know, one to use to kind of cover against them.
Absolutely. And if I recall, or actually, we'll answer this question. You are the master at this point. And some of these, if you're stunned, will that continue the elemental chain res? It will not, right? If you stunned and it's your turn, will the chain continue because you didn't take your turn because you were stunned? Do you know? No, right?
No, that it's you still have a turn.
That's what I thought.
So yeah, the unless you're debuffed with the chain extension from Raph, then your chain stack should drop off.
That's what I thought. I was just kind of trying to piece together the decrease of elemental chain res there, and if the chain would continue if you were stunned. My gut said no, but I was second guessing myself here looking at the character profile.
I know that Alaya does have 50% stun resistance, so though Vivi is definitely set up to counter her pretty well.
Yep, I would agree. And yeah, we'll talk about his vision card here too. Just on the vision card. So it's a book, mace, and staff A black mage and katana. So definitely more of the magic oriented units, but nice to throw katana in there. And this is another great card because that 24% area risk resist 32% reaction block, which we love. That's kind of like our number 4 favorite attribute you can give. 50% magic is exceptional for him and all of these magic units. The bestowed effects to 5% agility. Overall, really, really excellent card. It is for duel only, the hollow effect of 15% HP for so those of you that like to free match, and I think this would affect your class matches and stuff too, which they technically fall under duel. So this is an exceptional card for a variety of reasons that are still PvP oriented as well. Yeah, any initial thoughts when you look at this card overall?
So it has almost perfect overlap with the Great Demon card. kind of talking about that again. So Katana, Staff A, and Mace are all on Great Demon as well. So and that's going to give you your agility and your area resist, and you have that covered. Obviously, a very dark centric card. You have like pretty much all of the the best units you could think of there for dark. Adding book on there is going to allow you now to bring in Lucia as well. So
Yes.
um, yeah, I think I like it. Maybe you can bring in a little bit of Sottile or Queen Macherie, maybe Velis. I mean, there's some other decent units on there, but I think at the end of the day, it's pretty much a mono dark card.
I would agree with that. Yes, I mean, if I was ever to go outside of Mono Dark, it would be you look at Raph as that centerpiece tank, and then you just kind of build around that. However, you want to do it with damage dealers. You could go outside of Dark if you're going from the Magic angle, but even then, if you are looking at these Magic units, I do think Sadali is one of the higher ones on my tier list. Skahal a little bit, but that's kind of faded. The rest of them are kind of dated units from a Magic perspective. So I would agree with you that this tends to obviously favor mono dark, but regardless, you're talking about 3 out of the 4 Magic weapons. So for every and all other Magic units that come out, unless they're devout, they're going to be on this. So this still, I could see some good doors being kept open.
Actually, one thing that I caught on Odaiba's stream today, one of the teams that he was kind of testing against was Vivi, Helena, and Ayaka, which was actually working amazingly because they had just enough survivability that
Yep.
they could take a hit, and then obviously Ayaka's got 2 charges of the LB to get the instant heal onto them. It was working very, very well against a variety of teams that Odaiba was sending against it. So could be an interesting one. I was also looking at Lena on there as well because I've been searching for kind of ways to utilize that unit, which has just been non-existent.
Yep.
And if we do go into kind of a magic meta here, maybe she could be an interesting third there.
I still need to play with her. I have not 140'd her. I have her at 120, but I heard just some very bad things about her AI still that have made me not want to, use my rainbows at this point because I don't want to put her in barracks and waste a slot for that long. But yeah, so that's Vivi in a nutshell. Do you have any other thoughts about Zidane or Zidane or however we all pronounce them? And Garnet. Now that we've had a little time to stew on them.
Same thing for them. I don't know if I would put Garnet on an A tier. I think she's more going to be a B tier type unit for me at the end of the day. Obviously, still more to explore there, and I need to get my hands on her myself. But I just don't see enough there, like for her to be really helping the team that well with the sequential abilities. Like she has the one Dark Bahamut skill that she summons and it gets a Cura onto the team, but you really have to like do a lot of tuning to get her to actually use that skill. She'll actually prefer a lot of her other magic skills
Okay.
in many other situations. That's one thing that I've noticed. But I mean, I think that she's fine enough for very high magic value. I think that she's got some potential, especially again if we're going into a magic meta. She's very anti-magic with a lot of spirit and kind of tools to work against that. So good free unit. I think she's solid. For Zidane, I think that he needs another piece. Like I heard some, I think that's obviously the wind units are a little bit long in the tooth at this point. He's a unit that really needs a tank, and Joom just, I like her. She's fine, but she's not suited for the current meta whatsoever. And her strength is really like physical stuff, and that's also with her LB upgrade that continues. And we're not in a physical meta, and it's not changing with Helena. So I think that I think another win piece is going to be needed for Zidane to truly shine because the dagger group also isn't there.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, let me work in reverse just to keep your Zidane thought going. I'm completely in agreement. At this point, for most of these units, I'm looking beyond their mono element usage, unless there's something really special there. And for him, yes, wind is fine, but they're definitely lagging at this point. They got all of their love last year, not as much this year. The teams that I have been using this year successfully are teams that are made up of, let's say, Flagbr Glacy Sadali, and Summer Jaden have worked exceptionally well together as a team of 3. But Zidane seems like a really good soul counter, to be honest, on paper. That he seems to be diametrically like exactly what you would want to counter Soul in many regards. But to your point on the vision card, I'm looking at it the other day. I'm looking at who else is on that vision card, and it's really hard to see him outside of any kind of mono win team. And for that, I just have to kind of dock him points. That you ask the question at the end of the day: is there any other way you can beat Soul other than using Zidane? And the answer is like yes, and there will continue to be. It's not him and that's it. And if you miss it, you're done. So I agree with you on that point. The remove courage removal is still a cool thing for him. That we're seeing the remove re-raise removal. Him having the other side of it is definitely a nice value add. For Garnet, I'm still kind of in a mixed bag for her because I do still, like I'd mentioned, really like that orb or follow ability, the sequential ability of the Cura to teammates. I love her anti-magic and what she does, like for giving herself shell. Now that is dispellable by many, so that means a lot less nowadays, quite honestly. But I think she has a mechanic here where she's also all magic damage 10% permanently reduced. That's part of her MA2, if I recall. She does also have some great utility for dispelling, protecting shell for herself and teammates. And then the other big thing here that I really thought was very valuable, which she's got decreased spirit pen of 30 on enemies, which is the first of its kind of then more from the Watercast, I think you mentioned. But this is a really good one, I think, for a lot of the magic busting characters. I'm a little bit higher on Garnet at the moment, but I think it's a really tough case when you talk about her. Let's talk about Earth. Her, Renoa, Queen Macherie, they all do uniquely different things. It's hard for me to really put her on a pedestal above the other, but it seems like she's got a soul like AI where she's a damage dealer and then she'll heal like with her limit break, like with the Cura, like with the TMR. So I really love that AI. So I'm a little biased at the moment on her as opposed to Renoa and Macherie, who Masherie's kind of a bit of a paper tiger lately. We'll talk about that in a bit, though. And Renoa, who's got some jankiness with the AI occasionally, movement and timing and all of that stuff. So I think she tickles my fancy. I don't know how to use that phrase, but I think that's it.
I think that as a free unit, great. I think that there's going to be uses for her. I think that she's going to be good. I just don't. She's just not going to be that unit to carry you in any way. She's not going to be the sole carry. Though she does, like you said, she does have some things that she can do that are similar to him.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry. My last point I want to point on that is that she's a mace unit. I think if you were to look at all of the mace units and rank them, I do think of her very highly compared to who else is available from a UR perspective. That just recapping the UR units that are mace wielders here. This is global. If we open up JP in that regard, I think she's top three, if not top four. Like obviously Raph is on a whole different tier. Sudali's there. It's her. Queen Macherie kind of, but I think I like Dagger more than Macherie, and the rest of these units are okay, but not for 2023, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was lamenting in my guild with some of my guild mates the other day, kind of the looking at more and kind of her maltreatment, in terms of her upgrades and things. It seems like now would have been like really her first time to shine, like in this soul meta.
Yep.
And she can still, I mean, can still do okay, but it really should be like her dominating soul right now. And I think that her upgrades didn't serve her well in that department.
No, I agree. I've heard people talk about her theory crafting, but never actually used her. I would be intrigued to see someone actually use her because we've had some surprises lately with characters coming back to the Resurgence, like Luel for the Elia meta and things like that you just wouldn't have expected.
I brought her to 140, so
all right, I'll take your
played
word.
around with her.
I'll take your word for it then. But all right, guys, more doesn't work.
Good, but not great.
That works. That works. Cool. Well, yeah, we'll keep moving along here. Just some general content updates here. The first one, we'll talk about the new banners. We're getting another one here of like 400 free summons, and we've had a couple free, whatever, 700 free summons this last, or 70 free summons this last week, and we've had some exceptional selection unit banners in terms of VCs and units, and I've been thoroughly impressed. And like, I'll clap for Gumi for some of these banners last 3 weeks or so with the Reincarnation Festival. They have really been doing well with the banners. I don't know how your feeling has been on that.
I think they're essentially what the majority of what JP has been getting for their anniversary banners have been copy pasted into global. So there's been great paid banners. There's been great free banners as well. And then there's, obviously for free viz, there's been pretty good value banners too. A lot of shards available, select shards, which I used to kind of pump into soul and some other units.
Absolutely.
It was, I think 2K paid was like 600 shards. That was insane.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, the value that we haven't seen on banners in a very long time, if ever. So very happy to see that. Hope that we get a couple more tomorrow, and kind of keep it going because Gumi, I think definitely after Road to Worldwide and the crunch, they need to build up some goodwill. So keep doing that kind of stuff, I think.
I agree. Well, particularly where now we're getting increases to the hollow vision cost, and depending on the lack of foresight we have here, we're not going to be able to save as much. And so I think people are still underestimating just how badly they're going to get smacked around from a Viz perspective, not having that foresight. And doing things like this certainly is a way to alleviate just being able to get a bunch of shards for a unit maybe you were slow building, and now you can use them a lot quicker because you can very clearly see the pace of the game is going to move so much faster for everyone now. It really is going to be on a month by month basis that the wheel is going to keep turning. You can't be building a unit for 6 months, if that makes sense. Like, so anything they do with these banners in terms of even if it's 2K paid, throw some of that paid at there, get some of that catch up, select a vision card or a dark esper you're waiting on. Like, I'm really, really appreciative of that.
Yeah, you said the word catch up, and I think that's perfect description for those kind of style of banners that give you a bunch of shards so you can quickly build up a unit. Um, I think that could be maybe a silver lining for some of the cost increases that if Gumi is going to semi-regularly put those kind of banners out every couple of months, every 3 months, maybe it stings a little bit less that you can't get Helena tomorrow. Maybe a select banner comes along, or maybe one of these shard banners comes along. If you happen to off banner, you can quickly build her up and get her online. So I hope that these will come back, every couple of months.
Complete agreement. Yep, for sure. And then in terms of other content this week, we have limited guild war, and we'll gloss over some of this, but we have limited guild war. The main thing there is total cost of 540, so that's inclusive of espers and vision cards. I know a lot of times we'll make a team of 3 units. We'll give them an esper, maybe a vision card or two, but that's really it. I know this is where people get creative and really putting together 3 great units. I've no doubt this will be the same with light units getting spirit up and Staff Black Mage getting magic up, obviously in tune with the new Helena. The map, I don't think we've actually played this map before. This one should be a relatively new one. I haven't taken a deep dive myself, but it seems like the kind of map where we've seen similar ones. It kind of is the one that converges up here in the middle on a higher elevation plane. I don't have any strong thoughts initially. This looks like a pretty balanced map to me.
Yeah, I think this is one that we're gonna need to kind of check it out and mock it out a little bit. Nothing really all that interesting here is coming to mind immediately. Maybe just on the left side there, it looks like there's some non-traversable stuff right in the middle.
Yep.
And then on the right side, it looks like maybe about 5 squares ahead, there's also a non-traversable area. So maybe kind of a little pocket there that is good for gunner units. I think that's usually the first thing that I look at when I'm kind of first scoping the map. Is it going to be a good missile map? Because we've gotten all this missile tech lately, and I'm itching for kind of a good map to use it on.
Yep, I agree absolutely. Yeah, I've no doubt this map could be one for that. My only concern is you're going to be shooting upward here. So those gunner units at a direct line of sight probably going to have a height issue here as people get closer toward the middle. Usually, I know that typically favors when you're shooting down at someone, and I think you might get away with that with some of this height 3 stuff that you're seeing on the sides. If characters are in these weird like height 2 spots, but seems a little tenuous at first glance too. I agree. We'll have to play more.
I was happy to see that it's not some overpowered map effect this time. Like 20 spirit is very, inconsequential. And yeah, it's an actual limit this time, which is a bit different than some of the other limiteds that we had lately. So
Yeah,
good return to form there.
agreed. And then we also have quick pick returning where there's going to be some status effect nullifications here: silence, poison, and stop. I love those. Status effects are fun, but we are kind of in a status effect meta at the moment in terms of bringing in a SR little Leela or obviously a ton of poison from a bunch of characters. Stop maybe a little bit less so, but it's nice to just like eliminate 2 out of the 8 or whatever there is, and you can kind of tailor make your runes a little better. Maybe pick a TMR that covers a few a little more easier, and you're also getting healing power up, which I thought was really interesting on this map. But quick pick's one of my favorite modes. I have no doubt it'll be another fun one.
I'm a little bit puzzled with these effects because they're taking away silence, which is like one of the best ways to stop Soul.
Yep.
They are taking away his poison, which hurts him a little bit, but at the same time, they're also putting healing power up, which also helps him. So I feel like it's going to be another Sol Fest, which, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know.
it is what it is.
I know. We'll have to get creative here.
Yep.
But in addition to that, we do have new, story content for the Helena flashback, if you will. I'm actually kind of surprised, to be honest. I mean, we knew it was coming. I'm not surprised in that sense, but I kind of just figured the lore of that era was done, if that makes sense. I didn't really think they had a ton to cover in terms of unraveling the backstories, the history of the various nations, if you know what I mean. So I'm intrigued what they do with it from a lore perspective. I just kind of figured we were closing the book on that and it was done, but we've got a lot of cool artwork of obviously all the young, O and young Miraga. And, very cool to see them all. I'm excited to see it.
I hope that this story is good and well received so that we see all of those characters come into the game. I would love like a young badass O in his prime. Like that would be super sweet. And then obviously the young Moraga, like without the big golden armor and everything is looking pretty cool. Like a UR like, primo version of Curry would be cool too. Yeah, so I can see like where you're coming from in terms of like that, we had that kind of flashback story, but I don't think we really got in too much around Moraga's motivations and kind of as much around his backstory, at least if I'm recalling correctly. So I'm kind of interested to see that thread.
I thought his was Sadali related, that the golden armor was similar to Ruin Stern with the mask. That I thought he was taken over by Sadali and he kind of had those like primal urges. Oh, I could be. I like fell asleep for all of the first part of the game. Literally skipped all the cutscenes. So I could be wrong on that, but that was my gut for that, if I recall. That golden armor came
I
from him.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. But I mean, kind of before that, I mean, obviously this is like, I don't know, 10 years plus before any of that's happening. So I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens.
I like it. I know for me, my sleeper subplot is seeing young O there, where we've had so much of the current lore with the blades coming back into the forefront of things, and the East, and characters like Varush who are inconsequential from a PvP perspective, but lore wise are really cool. And I'm really intrigued to see if they do anything in terms of like O and his ties to the East. They do a couple name drops of like, I think they just recently teased a new person in the lore of who Varush was looking for. And I'm intrigued to see if they do that. Regardless, I think the whole thing is prime for some Easter eggs to set up some future stuff.
Definitely excited to see it.
Yeah. And then just honorable mention, 5 times arena and free match. I absolutely love this week because I love grinding for my Hermes sandals, and it's the only time free match queues a lot quicker, so I'll take that every week.
A free match is going to be 10 times actually. I think
10
it's
times.
arena 5 and free match is 10. So
Thank
yeah,
you. Even more
now's
so.
now's the time to get in there.
Definitely. Well, we'll keep cruising along here. We're doing good. We have some quality of life stuff that was in the producer's letter that came out. One of them I thought was really interesting was the Royal Rank packs are being updated. So the Royal Rank packs have been probably the best meme in the game for quite some time for just being horrendously valued. They're basically you're seeing them on the screen right now. Currently in the game, they're memeable. You're looking at like growth eggs and random UR vision cards and 50 awakening prisms, like for just horrendously bad value. And what they're doing for the post seems a lot more impactful. And I will circle back in just a second, but you're getting a level 99 Ziza. That's a Zizabel for you for 500 Viz. You're getting potentially like, oh, where am I going? Macherie. You look at the Macherie TMR. I think it's another really good one that I immediately thought of. They're bumping up the Fragment of Thought, getting 200 of them, and the Awakening Prison, like way better value overall as you go up here, and way more affordable in terms of what the Viz cost is in terms of like 2,000 Viz a piece. None of this like 13,000 Viz crap for a UR ticket. Like it's insanity what the currents one are. Yeah.
Yeah, like what is it? The Royal Rank 18 is like 30,000 Visior,
Yeah.
like as of today. And these are like these are like what they overhauled these like a year ago or like a half ago. And before that they were just as bad or maybe even worse, but 30,000 Visior, you're kidding me, for even if it is 1,000 soul stars, like whatever, like
Yeah.
if I just pumped $50,000 into your game, you're gonna ask for you're gonna ask me for another couple $100. Like, give me a break. Give me.
Absolutely insane. But I will say like yeah, like I'm looking at the current one here for Royal Rank 16, which very few people have. But you're looking at Transcendent Mind Spheres here now of 400 and 400 UART scrolls. Like these are actually usable things for a lot of these whales that are up in this area, and even those that are 14 and under. I still think you're going to get a lot of value here from some of them. The big honorable mention for me is that they're doing away with the +3 of the Hermes Sandal, Sage Staff, and Platinum Armor. Now, I know these are very expensive at the moment, but those of you that are trying to build, this might be your easiest and maybe only way to still get these. The Sage Staff, they are giving recipes if you place top 10 in Arena, so I know there's at least a little bit of a quicker access. But for like the Platinum Armor, the Hermes Sandal, I don't know how you +6 those without buying this. Like, you bought this, right, for your Platinum Armor? You had to have. No? What?
No,
Really? Have you been playing free match
no.
since day one? You had to have been.
Yeah, I mean, people have gotten it quicker than I have. I
Ah,
didn't even optimize, as much as I could have. But I think like doing it daily, it still takes like a year and a half of grinding to be able to get it.
okay, so I'll
So
admit I cheated then. I bought this pack for the Sage Staff, so that I did spend 13,000 viz for that. God, who knows how long ago? But
I was a little bit tempted to do this here on the last day, but but no, it's the equipment is cool, but not enough for me to pump a bunch of Vizier like that into it.
not anymore.
Personally,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, not definitely not today. A year ago, maybe, and I still use my Sage Staff +6 frequently. Not worth 13,000 Vizier. But they're also giving a quality of life enhancement for reincarnation batch enhancements that you're able to, use a certain meter, and as it kind of like levels up each time, you're able to like stop it. I would imagine if you like a certain kind of roll, or if you don't want to spend any more of a certain currency, that's a definite nice quality of life. They're not just clicking reincarnations over and over.
Would have been really nice if they got it to us for this past week where we had the festival where everybody's reincarnating a bunch of units.
I
But
know.
hey, better now than never.
It's true. Absolutely true. And we're getting a Esper UI enhancement that when you're in the select, like the node stage of picking what nodes you want, it'll show you the aggregates rather than you like counting in your head. Super simple, super helpful though, like that. And they are releasing some +6 gear. One of them is the Cobalt gloves. I think it's pretty inconsequential. They are upgrading the Gaia Type 100 though to +6, which I did think was relatively noteworthy. And just to highlight what it is, they're increasing it from defense pen of 20 to defense pen of 30, which I actually do think is noteworthy. That's one of my biggest things for a lot of these missile units. They naturally skew a little lower on the defense pen side of things. And to me, when I looked at this old +5 version, I'm like, the difference between defense pen 20 on this gun or the 10 you would get from a touchstone passive, relatively inconsequential. But going from 10 from a touchdown passive to 30 on the weapon is a lot better. I know Rugia is like the poster child for this because it's his gun. But just generally speaking, for gunner units, I actually think this is a good one.
35 attack too is a good bump
Yes, you're going up to
on the assault version.
208 attack. I select the crit rate and the crit damage there. Get those off your touchdown passive, freeze this up. That's technically a damage increase. That's not changing. That still exists currently. But in addition to the defense pen, I think it's a good upgrade.
Yeah, I'll definitely +6 this one.
Yep, 100%. So good. Well, then we'll transition to the War Room here, and we will look at a couple MA2s for Flagbr Glacy MA2, Chunak, and Queen Macherie, who just last week all got their upgrades for this. And we'll go through them one by one. We'll go through Flagbr Glacy MA2 first here, where, yeah, hers was essentially what? Crit rate of 10, they gave her an extra of. You're also getting that AoE res of 10 and the crit damage of 15.
I mean, she already had a ton of area resistance, so I think this gives her like between the MA2 and the passive, she's got like 40 innately, right?
Yep.
Because she's got 30 in her passive.
Yep.
So yeah, like that really kind of doubles down on her specialty, which is that area damage resistance. Still got the Great Barrier. The one thing that I think has hurt Classy a lot is that her damage just isn't quite as doesn't quite feel as good as it used to like a year ago. That's because like with a lot of units, the higher impenetrable resistances, the higher general pierce resistance on some units, like especially tanks, has trended higher. So I think getting this bulk in there, I think definitely lets her kind of stay alive on the battlefield to get her damage out that she needs to over time.
I agree, and I agree. It's definitely diminished. I still think she's a top tier unit though, just for the utility. Still, that loads and loads and loads of accuracy. Number two, you have that dispel on a relatively cheap AP. I still use this depending on the map for that quick early dispel. But you have that remove courage on a nice AoE as well. You also have a wind imperil here that, sure, even if people are stacking Pierce Res, she can still hit you with a wind imperil. You also have Dispel Re-Raise. So the fact that she can dispel both Courage and Re-Raise, not even to mention, I think it was on the sub job here, there is technically a barrier break, a lot more short range though. So, a little bit later in the fight that you would use that. But overall, I'm still a fan of like what she can do from a main job perspective, that I still think she's a great unit all this time later, particularly still with up to 80 defense pen between these two passives and that extra bulk that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the units that I heavily invested into in this reincarnation festival. I had a bunch of, mind spheres built up from her from various pools, and was happy to put some scrolls into her to kind of help out her damage.
100%. I did the same exact thing. Yep. And we'll move on to Chunak here, who has seen kind of a fun theory crafting resurgence where they gave him an extra 10 AoE res, an extra 10 evasion as well. A lot of people have been looking at him for those soul comps in terms of, soul's accuracy being relatively subpar, but also Chunak doing really good things in terms of not only the evasion, but his own unit res and some of that defense and spirit that's reliant upon getting hit, which sure Soul can guaranteed hit him, but might miss, and he's got that ignore shirt for 3 hits as well, so that certainly feeds into it. There's a lot of good things in this kit. I haven't seen him, um, you know, crack the meta, but he's certainly far more viable than he ever has been, particularly with the Lucio vision card that just came out.
We have used him in my guilds, myself and a couple of other people, to pretty good effects against the Shawls, Amnelis Soul team.
Yep.
Because I mean, as long as you're covering disable, like for Amnelis's arithmetician ailment there, he's good to go. Like they can't hit him. He does have innate poison resistance. Very evasive. He's got a barrier break. He actually can pair very well with Lucio. So that's one team that I made was around that Halloween Vision card.
Yep.
So yeah, worked pretty well.
I love this. I've seen it work very well, and I'm very excited to always see that happen at the very least.
Not a meta unit, but like if you're countering the meta, very very sneaky good pick, I would say.
I would agree with that totally. And finally getting the Queen Macherie update, which we were looking for good lord, it feels like months at this point that we're a little bit behind, and hers are, I'll be honest, pretty substantial. It's a 20% magic res pen. The big one here is when her health is above 60%, she'll get 40 unit res. That is an exceptional MA2 upgrade in this current meta. Do you want to talk about this? Because I have a couple bullet points that I'll hit on, but I'll let you take the floor first.
Yeah, this is one that I had been waiting on because this is an amazing upgrade for countering Elias, and specifically also going to be very good against Soul as well.
Yep.
But yeah, as long as like she's going to be topped off above 60%, she is going to be able to have that huge area single target resistance. She also has very good area resistance as well. It's not hard to get her up to like 50% or so for using like Sheraton Vision Card and the Sheraton Esper especially. So very, very solid survivability now with especially on the current Guild War map where Earth is just already getting the 20% bonus.
Yep.
You can also have Renoa in there giving her haste, gets another 20%. So I've seen builds where she pops like Vildira's TMR and she's basically taking 1 damage no matter what you hit her with.
Yes. Let me segue off that because I wanted to bring that up. That unit res of 40, right? That's when her HP is above that threshold. Figure at minimum you have a vision card that'll give her another 20. That puts her up to 60. Survival vest bumps her up to, let's say, 75. And a teammate buff, all you need is just an extra 20 or so, and you're near like null unit res, which is exceptionally powerful right here. And that 60% threshold, if those of you that recall, she's got healing power of 15. If you just give her a healing power 10 rune, the combination of this healing power 15 and a healing power 10 means that when she re-raises herself, this was her 140 that was kind of, I think, controversial at the time. 40% HP regained. That times 1.5 is 60%. That means when she re-raises, she'll re-raise to 60%. So when she does re-raise herself, that will still be an effect of the single target res of 40. So you may not be insta-killed in that next attack. So overall, a lot of big trickle-down effects from this MA2.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people as soon as this went through started bringing her in, maybe over Renoa or maybe next to Renoa on an Earth team. So really nice upgrade. Definitely, she's worth another look now if you haven't upgraded her.
Yep, totally agreed.
Yeah, have you seen people doing that with Vildira's TMR and Renoa Haste for her?
I have not seen. I've seen the Vildira for Rain a lot, but I've not seen it for her, and I'm not surprised at all to see that.
Yeah, so she's like, no matter what you hit her with, she takes 1 damage. It's pretty insane.
It's awesome.
At least for those 3 turns or whatever, but
right. So that brings us to our Q&A section here, and we have a lot of good Q&A. I'm really looking forward to this. But the first one here is a little more of a fun topic that, do we both have a favorite unit we're hoping gets the new winter design? Do you want them to continue the trend of 70 cost units? And finally, do you think the older winter units need to be viable again? Wouldn't be able to mind using Winter Luartha in the upcoming Spear meta that I think we're all kind of predicting. But yeah, for yourself, we'll kind of take this. It seems like a 2-part or 3-parter. Do you have a favorite unit that comes to mind that you'd want to see get the new winter design?
I don't know. That's a tough one. They seem to really go for like the waifu units, especially at Christmas. Like almost like, has there even been a guy Christmas unit thus far? I don't think so.
I don't think so. You're right. Yep.
I think they've all been waifus. So if I'm picking one of those, I don't know. I've always been a fan of Nivlu. I think I would like to see maybe another version of her. How about you?
For me, it would probably be Oldoa right now, where she's still like lore relevant. She keeps popping up in the story. Her original version is unusable. That it would be kind of fun to see her kind of pop back in. She does fit that like waifu status for many. I think my close second one though would, as a Whisper stand, would love to see her because she's got that one version, and again, very lore prevalent character at the moment. That like they're kind of teasing that romance with Stern as well. If you know what I'm saying, like you're building that up. I can't think of a better time to roll her out as this like winter unit.
I like it.
But my sleeper, if they're going with a guy for the first time ever, give me like a reindeer Gilgamesh, because I think that'd be super fun to see Gilgamesh as some kind of random, unit.
It would go perfectly with his helmet. Like he's got kind of like, I can see the antlers coming off of there. So
absolutely
I like it.
Yep,
definitely.
Yep. Do you think they should be 70 cost if they do? That's kind of like they said, a recurring trend there.
I hope so. Like, I mean, if every other unit is going to be 100 cost, then give us some stuff to break it up, because it's it's a little bit much, So
I would
70 cost is good. 70 cost is good. Maybe every once in a while they can do a high cost one.
I totally agree. I think they've made some great 70 cost units lately. Just because you're 70 cost doesn't mean you're bad. I think we improperly thought that for a while through that 100 cost barrage of units. At 70 cost units felt underwhelming. But man, some of the recent ones, Halloween Lucio is exceptional. Shawls is certainly amazing. Grifford is just, he's tough because fire's a thing right now. He's still an excellent 70 cost unit. Like, there's nothing wrong with 70 cost. I'm pro that, considering they stay on the cores with limited guild cost restriction stuff. That's paramount as well.
Yeah. And the one we're missing too, Bronwell, also very solid too.
Yes, good call out there too. Yep. And then any hope for old winter units at this point?
This is tough because we already know like what the 140 upgrades are. Like we can see them on JP. At this point, they're a year olds. They're very bad for today's meta. All of them, unfortunately, are, if they come out as they are for a year ago, very bad. No hope at all in the meta, which sucks because I have all of them. Spent a lot of viz to get them.
Yep.
And routinely every year their upgrades have been delayed, and been able to get good use out of any of them other than maybe Luartha, who was good, when she was first released. So unless they like really get it some amazing LB upgrade, like better than anything we've seen so far, I don't see any hope for them.
I would agree with that. I think the only saving grace they potentially have would be a global exclusive thing. And I know Gumi said they're past that for us, but maybe this is an exception because they've left them. if they made a winter accessory and they did something kind of crazy with it, where if it was like a flat 3000 HP. You know what I mean? Like, bam! If you're one of these 5 units, you get 3000 HP. You get 20% damage. You know what I mean? It has to be something like that, where it was like a drastic accessory. Because there is trade offs. Number one, it means you can't equip something in a slot. That is a trade off. But number two, I don't know how you could possibly do this organically through limit break upgrades or ability. We already know, like you said, what their JP upgrades are, and unless you buck to trying to do something totally unique for global, which I think is more work than the accessory, I don't think you're going to get it.
So I mean, they did do that summer accessory, but I
Right.
mean, it was okay. It was
It
okay,
was not
but
good.
yeah,
Yeah, this would have
yeah,
to be. This would be like this would be like a public acknowledgement that they're like, "Wow, like sorry guys, like we dropped the ball." There you go.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, Gumi, if you're listening, that would be great if you hooked us up. But aside from that, yeah, you're waiting on those LB upgrades, and for 80 cost units, I wouldn't hold my breath too long.
definitely not.
I am a huge Victoria fan, so I would love to. I would love to see it if it did happen.
Definitely, yeah. We've talked about water missile unit. She's still the one that we were hoping for, but whatever. The second one, I actually have a lot to say about this in a fun way. I think you and I would likely sink our teeth into this. But the question is, why do you think global struggles with evaluating new characters so much? Used to happen with almost every global first, and most recently happened with Halloween Lucio. Do you think the global audience was too dependent on the JP meta? Now I have like a 2 minute soapbox that I'll stand on for this, but do you have any immediate thoughts on answering this?
I mean, is who is he talking about here? That's what I'm wondering. Is he talking about? I don't think that I've or you've had really many issues in terms of evaluating new units. Um, but yeah, I don't think I would agree with that. At least as far as what I've seen, maybe once in a while somebody makes a bad call, but I don't think it's I don't think it's the I think that's the exception rather than the rule.
I can see that. I think this is more likely probably the subreddit and the discords of people kind of like memeing on characters. It's probably my guess. I will say I did give Lucio a B minus, which for like my grading ranking might as well be awful. But a couple things here that I think are worth talking about as a content creator when we evaluate characters. Number one, we don't have that foresight anymore, so we have to be a little bit picky on like what's special and what's not special. Number two, I will say I think I made some comments that in hindsight I would have taken back. That I was talking about him in the mono element Earth, and I'm like, if you have Zidane Ketone, like he's interchangeable. I completely walk that back. He is very much special compared to Zidane Ketone. It's not even
Oh
close.
yeah.
So I made that reference, and I think I probably made that reference talking about like whether you should pull or not, like viz wise. Character evaluation, I was dead wrong if I made that comment. But I know we keep talking about this. I look for rainbow potential in the future. There's a couple things that you have to have certain minimums of that I look at. And for me, when you're an evade unit, right now, number one, nullify sure hit is definitely something because there is far more guaranteed hit in the game. The fact that you're not, or the fact that you don't have access to that, I think doesn't scale well. Because number two, characters that rely on pure evasion to live, a lot of people don't like to talk about it. They say like, "Oh, I don't reincarnate my units." We've talked about this. Top end of the game does reincarnate their units. If everyone is going to reincarnate Alaya and give her that extra 20 to 30% accuracy, and you're not going to fully reincarnate the Lucio, that is a drastic closure of evasion hit rate between a top tier unit and him. That once you consider that, you get diminished value from him. But then even looking at like where you use him in the future in some of those rainbow teams, because there's two different Lucios. There's the Lucio that's reliant on his knight vision card, which is a great vision card. But if you look at who's on that card, it's kind of eh. So if you look at the Earth vision cards, though, Earth vision cards are like down the middle, broken, busted, exceptional when you put him next to Bradley. Like it's undeniable how good that synergy is. And if you're gonna do that, yes, like he's an A tier unit, but at the top end of the game, there's so much elemental counterplay. There's so many other things that just bypass a mono element team that it might work for 90% of people. That's how you gotta like be picky and evaluating those. So I know me personally, that's my soapbox on kind of my justification that you bring in a great wind unit, all of a sudden like you can't use Lucio. You know what I mean? It's just as simple as that.
I think that's kind of the mind shift that all of the majority of us need to take. That I know that there is a portion of the player base that does play, exclusively mono elements and probably will continue to do so, maybe because they don't invest as much into the game. But anybody that's actively playing and continues to pull, over the coming months, these rainbow teams are going to continue to open up more and more for people who have collected all the cards so far. Like us, they're already in full swing. There's rainbow all over the place and on the top of the PvP brackets. So that is kind of the lens that you need to view these units, and that is how Gumi is designing the game now. They're not as much. I think that they're really not looking at mono at all these days. They are looking at it a little bit, in terms of like synergies for like a core duo maybe, but not like a full mono element team, I don't think.
And if they do, you're exposing yourself because people are getting around that mono element nowadays. So even if you like, we just looked at a card, the Vivi card, excellent mono dark card. There's still a lot of mono dark counterplay, despite the fact that it's a neutral element. Like there's things you can do to really hedge against that. That rainbow kind of throws a wrench in the.
I think that it's an overall good thing for the game, because I know that's something that we've talked about, like a Ferris, for example, that's seemed to really get downplayed because Elia came out a few weeks later. The rainbow direction of the game gives those kind of characters a new life, because you can put them in different compositions, different teams, and surround them with different units that hedge against that weakness. Now maybe you get more legs out of that unit and more fun because maybe you really like that unit. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like to see that direction for the game.
Totally. But I will agree, there was probably some swings and misses in the last couple years on global units. And I think that being said, too, there was probably more less analytical approaches where I won't say names because it's not a critique of anybody in particular, but I know a lot of character reviews are based off like the field test and like how some arena mocks and not very sophisticated analyses that might lead to some bad conclusions. But I know you and I are relatively analytical and try to stay unbiased, so I think you and I have rarely like missed. We probably undersold. Like I probably increased my rating from a B minus to something higher, but yeah, I think that helps.
No, I think when you're purely looking at the numbers and comparing them against the units like we do it, and looking at the abilities and talking about what they do, what the pros and cons are, it's hard to be wrong at that point. But I think, like you said, you can maybe undervalue or maybe miss something. That certainly can happen. It happens to everyone, but I don't think that it's en masse. But again, I don't look at people doing reviews and things on Reddit or things like that. So
Same, same. And to be fair, it could just be people in denial. I know that's the thing too. You get a unit come out, you don't have the viz to buy them. Make yourself feel better. You shit all over them because you don't think they're good, and that way you feel a little better about passing on them. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's like an element of that too.
there you go.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna loop back to Final Fantasy IX real quick because I actually think there's some teeth in this as a conversation. And the question is it me or is everyone underselling Zidane? We both watched some live streams about him, and most of the JP streamers are underselling him. Do you think? We'll focus on the word underselling. Do you think we're underselling him? Is he better than we think he is? Or
I think he's a very good unit, and at least as of now, he is the only unit in the game to protect your courage status. Obviously, we thought that Vivi was going to have that unique niche on the re-raise side, but that was pretty short-lived. So we don't know, how long that's going to last for him. But at least as of now, he has that great niche. He's very much an anti-soul, like anti-magic kind of mage killer type unit. I think there's a lot there that you can work with. He can also be, you can also kind of do like a semi-evasive build with him too. Like Wind has some good support for that. The dagger group, though, I think is like the one kind of dent in the armor for him, where the dagger cards just aren't a great set yet for me. I don't know, and especially the dagger units, I think is probably in even worse shape, because before Zidane, like your best dagger unit is Bold Leela, who admittedly she is still very good. She's very solid, but I don't think that she is what she was, a year and a half ago where she came.
no, I agree, and I brought this up just for visual reference. You're right. If you're looking at these dagger units, and again, you would never really make a mono dagger team. Like this isn't Pierce, if that makes sense. Like Pierce is special because it's a specific damage resistance that many don't have. But I agree, natural synergies, you look to align some of these, and there's really no one here other than Dark Leela that I think is a good pairing for her. Resol with for him. I'm sorry, wrong pronoun. Resol is again a wind unit, so maybe you get some of that wind overlap there. But even then, like she is underwhelmed, so it's not a good motivator to really pull for that. That's why when I look at these cards here, I'm really looking for even like outside of the dagger class, and I do look at his vision card, and I kind of alluded this to. If I look at this card, none of these characters. I mean, there's some good tanks here. Dialdo and Raph, yes, take them and run. But the rest of these units, like some of them, I just don't see the reason why you would pull him. I like some of these wind units in this card. Glaciella and Sidali obviously stand out immediately. So it's not a lost cause. I just think that when you have the bar of Souls and Elias and now the new Helena, uh, it just makes it a harder pull for your value. I think it's as simple as that. I think it's the undersell. It's just a value proposition at that point. How much Viz do you want?
He's
Yeah,
yeah, he's just not the meta shaping unit, right? He's very good, he's very strong. He's just not going to be in that very top of the game that is really like he's not the unit that you're building around at that point. He's not quite good enough uh to completely carry your team like a Helena, like a Soul, like some of these other, top of the line units. And I think that's by design. I think that's, that whole conversation we were getting into earlier is Gumi has, I think, consciously made this design choice that the permanent pool units now are going to be the can't miss kind of units, and these collab units are going to be kind of the more fun, more enablers, solid units, but not the ones that you really can afford to not miss.
right. And if you're talking about wind, going back to basics, wind versus earth, I think you can still beat earth without him. So I don't think that's a big value add for that element. And then when you talk about dual element, because that is a thing that you look for when you talk about the chaos espers, winds is the dark Ramu with lightning, and that's a magic oriented card. So it doesn't really do anything to affect him per se in that potential matchup, if you will, of elements. So
They do have the combo with fire with Dark Tetra as well. So I mean,
I'm
that's
sorry, but you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. I walked that back. So that is valid. I'll give you that. But yeah,
I do think that there is potential for like the Resalt combo to be good, but she really needs a very good MA2 here. And it should be coming sometime soon. So, maybe that's got some potential there.
yeah, because there are some untapped dagger VCs that we haven't looked at because they just haven't been that strong. I know like hers that came out was that accuracy, attack, and slash res, and it seems like they're okay, but like that's not an overpowering vision card, and the rest of these are not a lost cause either. There are some still good ones here. We just talked highly about Greater Demon. That's on here. Obviously, the Sylvie vision card is still one of the OG really good ones as well. I haven't used that card in God knows how long at this point. Um, but there's still some stuff here that you can like play with, and that's where you kind of have to like, I don't know, maybe play the edge and what they're going to release in the future too. We can't predict that obviously though.
Yeah, three of these cards are global exclusives: the Sylvie, the Resnick, and then the Elena card. So in JP, he's even worse shape when it comes to this job class. But they do at least have like area resist. They have agility. They have unit resist. If you include the Hollow Vision card, but I don't know. I feel like they're still missing that one piece, like I said earlier, for him to kind of be taken to the next level.
It's funny you bring that up. We talked about that being our worst vision card ever released. The what's called Resnick one here.
With the slash pen, yeah.
Yeah, this I could actually see some value in. Where if you're talking about, um, mono wind, which again we're trying to get away from, but mono wind has the Sadali card, which has two of the three attributes you would want on it, which leaves you a free third, which could be this, but it brings me back to one of my OG statements. Why would I need this 28 slash res pen for a win team when we already have the Exorcist vision card? If you know what I mean. Like, we already have a slash res pen vision card for wind, and it obviously has not made a dent in any of that. So it would be a far cry that this would do the same thing.
I don't know. I do kind of like that when you think about his role as like an anti-magic, like mage killer, like getting some spirit on there.
Mm-hmm.
The crit rate falls into like kind of what he wants to do with like the crit damage and peril. So I actually do kind of like this card for him. I think it's one of the first times that I can honestly say that because yeah, this I said there was one of the biggest duds of the year so far.
Absolutely, yes. So I guess it's niche enough that it's you have to undervalue it a little bit. Yeah, I think it's as best as we can talk about it without actually like diving down into like any numerical or recording examples, which we don't have. But
Are you gonna skip him?
oh man, I am gonna skip him. I'm at the point, and we'll pause before the next question. Um, I'm at the point where I'm going to be drastically dialing down my spending. With the Hollow VCs, I'm going to be far more picky. I've spent so much on reincarnating so many of these units. Let me get some legs out of them for a while. And this is just totally off topic, but I'm going to be making a video about this soon. Retired, the guild I joined, we're one match away from retaking number one in global. We have beat everybody in the top 10 multiple times. That was our goal. Once we got back to here, we're like, let's just see if we can do it again. And VIP has lost a lot. They're like 8-8 at this point, their record recently. That we're looking to take this final win over the new Ashura Vision Guild. That's number one. We're only 5 points behind them. And we're like, once we take back number one, kind of prove we could go from 0 to 100 again, or 0 to 1 again, then we're just going to go like full on retired, and I'm just going to play for fun. So once I take that foot off the pedal, the pull becomes a lot less of a need. How about you?
I think it depends on how the pulls go tomorrow.
That's smart.
If I get bones by the pulls tomorrow, then I'm gonna have to skip him.
Yep. Yeah. I think
I definitely want Helena. Like she's gonna be like the unit. I think she looks that good.
I would agree. Well, if she has a Hollow VC coming out too, that's going to be expensive. You know what I mean? Like if I got to pick and choose, I got to pick the thing that's going to make me last the longest at this point.
If they, I'm gonna rake Gumi over the coals if they put him out at 20K in our next podcast.
What do you
With
mean?
no star support. Like,
Oh, for the cost of a Hollow VC?
yeah, like
Yeah,
that's what it costs in JP. It's 20,000 or 10 laps to pity, and then no stars to build it up.
I know. I know. We're awkward silence. Like everyone press F in chat because we're. I don't know how to feel about this yet.
Yeah, so
Okay,
we'll
well,
cross our fingers that it's better for us, but we'll
yeah,
see.
we'll see. We'll keep going through these Q&A though. Do you think cookie cutter super teams like Soul, Summer Glaciella, and Brattlelayer are too powerful and or detrimental to the variety and creativity of builds? This is a really good question. I know you and I have been playing a lot with this circle of characters in top 10. Do you have any thoughts immediately to this question?
I personally like it because I think those moments when those units are so good that everybody's playing them really allows you to be more creative to find those niche counters, which I've been doing and which my guild has been doing, which a lot of people, and I'm sure your guild is doing it too. You have to do it because not everybody has the specific build or team to be able to play the meta. That's where the Chunaks of the world come out. That's where these cheeky evade builds of like semi evasion Bradley come out. All these kind of weird I've even seen evade light builds. Those are the kind of things that you see come out in these moments. And I don't know. I think that's there's been these kind of moments throughout the history of the game. There's always been a top team at any point that you can point back to. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I I love them. I hate them. I hate them from the perspective that it negates a large chunk of the cast. That being said, a large chunk of the cast was likely not going to be playable anyway, even without them. So there's, functionally speaking, I don't think anything's changed. It's now just a definite instead of a maybe. It used to be like a maybe you can use them. Now it's like probably not. Um, the very good thing I like about them though is that at first I was very much against the increase in buff, uh, the potency. I thought it was really bad for the game because you just have to read way more, remember way more, and it's there's no reining it in. Gumi can just do whatever they want in all these. But one of the unique things that I think has changed my mind about this is that so many of these buffs, being as powerful as they are, have diminished the reliance on vision cards, which I thought was a really interesting take. That, for instance, if you have a character that has 4 buffs on them, and one of them is an accuracy buff and one of them is a AoE buff, well, that accuracy buff, you no longer need the accuracy vision card. And so if you're making a rainbow team, you no longer need all these vision card attributes to add up because you have buffs that are basically the same value as the vision card would have been. So when you talk about making these rainbow teams and kind of building these characters to be more self-sufficient, the vision cards still have an impact. No doubt they do. Probably less so than used to be though, which I think is a really interesting perspective on it. And so these teams, when it's just one unit, that stinks. When it's just one unit driving the meta, that's boring. But right now, there's some good rock paper scissors going on with like all these different meta defining units that I don't think it's stifling creativity. To your point that we're getting like Amnelis out of nowhere is suddenly like a good unit. Chunak out of nowhere. A couple weeks ago for the whole Elia meta, we were running Luell on offense, and she was null lightning, and she would even get above 100% lightning rate. She was taking 1 damage from Elia, and we were running Luell like out of nowhere. Like it's cool, it's fun.
I was going to say that I think that the moment that I disliked the most was when it was just Elia and she completely invalidated almost every other unit for, basically until Saul came in. Now that Saul is here, we're in more of a rock paper scissors situation where, he kills Elia kills everyone else, Evade kills Saul, or you basically have that triangle going on where now Saul needs to maybe worry about accuracy or cover that in some way, and then maybe he's exposed to some other damage type at that point. So I think that now things are a bit more varied, a bit more fun than they were about a month ago.
Agreed. And I like the magic emphasis. For a long time, magic units were not good in the game. They were very, very niche. And now they have a character like Summer Glassy with that huge physical damage aura to teammates that incentivizes you to bring magic against her. We're using Renan in top 5 guild play. Renan is an active staple of our attack teams because he's able to take out Summer Glaciella much faster than everyone else. That's so cool. Like I think that's very unique that you can finally get that opportunity.
I 100% get the sentiment, and I can understand the frustration with it. And, I've seen people throwing their hands up. Um, and it was a tough situation there until I think Saul came in and things started to open up. At the end of the day, though, like not everybody has access to all those units. So, maybe depending on your accounts, maybe it's can seem a little bit more futile. But maybe that's where we can throw some gems out there that might be able to help people. So
Definitely.
we'll see.
Definitely. And as we mentioned, they're permanent pool units other than Summer Glassy. I think that's great that you have these hugely impactful units available to pull and accumulate shards for on like the monthly, what do you call them? Like they give you the medals, the Mog medal exchange or whatever. That it's awesome. I like it. About 3 questions left here. We're getting there. This next one: would it be good or bad for the game if the Veritas units are Meta 100 cost free units? I think it's kind of interesting. Any thoughts initially?
So my first take is I don't think they're all going to be free. Um, I think we talked about this in maybe the last podcast, but in the live stream where they first announced it, I think they specifically said something like there'll be more coming in the future via other means. So I think this first one, or maybe the first couple or something, is maybe through the reliquaries. I don't think that all of them are going to be that way. If they do end up being that way, I don't think it would be bad for the game. I think that's incentivizing, a cool mode that people like to play. At least I like to play it, like some of the more high-end PvE stuff, and having like good, like really nice rewards that you could build up, like the selection quest units. I think is also a good thing for the game because when people aren't able to pull, I think they might turn to those free units and work on those instead to have something to do in the game. Not having a new round of selection quest units this past year, I think, has made the 100 cost crunch harder, than years past, I think.
I'll meet you halfway because I do think a lot of those selection quest units were very subpar. That I think even if it was, and that was always the problem. Actually, I will stand fast on this. That was actually the problem. The investment that it took to get a subpar UR unit, where you had to like build these MR units and max them and invest in them, was not a good return on investment from a resource allocation perspective. So I hope they slightly change that. I wouldn't be opposed if it was like relatively easy content to get a really good 100 cost unit to make that more accessible for new players. I don't hate that because there's going to be counterplay inevitably. I don't think they would make a broken free 100 cost unit. You know what I mean? But you can make a really competitive one. I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
I mean, plenty of the units that have come out over the past year have been 90 cost and 100 cost clothing. So if they made it that style of unit, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yep. 100% agreed. Next question here, creative one, kind of thinking ahead to the future. What do you see as the next logical step for power creep in the game? This is a tough one to predict because there's a lot of ways you can go with this. Have you thought about this at all?
I did. I have thought about it, and I think that after we go through this year, if we make it through a whole another year of the game, it has to be a level cap increase. I think it's going to be stats that need to increase. I think that the ability power creep has really reached like a critical, you can't really add too much more. Like we're seeing paragraphs for the abilities. You just talked about it. It's getting harder to know exactly what each and every buff is doing. The one kind of area that really hasn't been creeped that much, I think, is stats, where if you compare like stats from the units releasing now to the beginning of the game, sure, like there's some upgrades that have happened, like agility has trended upwards, magic and attack have trended upwards, but it's not so far in the stratosphere that they're that much different. So I think that's we're going to see like a new tier of unit, 140 base. They're going to have higher stats, and that's probably where they'll take it.
I think you're right. And I'm going to use FFBE as the baseline. I remember there was a time where like power creep was just numbers based. You'd get characters, yeah, you'd always have evolving abilities, but you'd get to the point where like the raw damage numbers that would come out were just like just jettison upward. I feel like that is the next logical step. Reincarnation is kind of the half step to get there. You've seen the impact of what those stats already do on an incremental basis. I think it's got to be the next, and I would agree with you. It would probably be again the things like the HP and the attack. Probably not agility because that's got different trickle down effects. So if you do that, but I think we're basically done with many of like the imperils and penetrations that we've seen. I think you've kind of stress tested. We've kind of gotten as far as we can with some of those, but at the same time, I think they're getting creative with abilities, but I don't think that's the next step for power creep. I think abilities are just always going to be like new and creative to counter something previously and do something cool. Power creep wise though, I know we're getting hollow VCs. I don't think it's vision card. I don't think it's equipment. It's got to just be like character stats. I would agree.
And I think also maybe, and I've said this before, like maybe expanding into the sub jobs, that's another avenue that they could potentially take it to.
Absolutely right. So if we're thinking from like a gotcha mentality, I would think that no matter what, the next jump in power creep is going to bonus in the butt. Like there, power creep is not F2P friendly. You know what I mean? It's spending, and so if you made content that you had to pay X amount or grind X amount for a extra sub job to like get access to, or a third counter ability or a third passive ability, like I could see that being a power creep thing where, hey, look, you get a free third passive ability, but it's like $80 and you have to get the scroll to unlock it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they don't do that.
We'll see it in year 5.
Very possible. And the last question here: where is wotv the most healthy at this point in the game, and where is it the least healthy? So I'll let you kick this one off too if you want. Where is War Divisions the most healthy at this point of the game?
I think that the biggest selling point is the PvP of the game. It's always been, I think, in my opinion, I think that creative things and the depth of gameplay, that is where I think the game has shined the most. I think where it is least healthy, that's a tough one because there's a few areas I think that need some work. Definitely like from a PvE angle, like it's not the selling point of this game. I think that's one of the weakest areas of the game. I think there's like some threads that they left with like the free match stuff that's never really was able to take off or do what they had, their initial plans were for it. That just kind of is collecting a lot of dust now. But I do think that like the cost of the game, I think, is a little bit of an issue to kind of keep up with that PvP. So I think that they've continued to add on more shards and things that you need to collect, but the amount of like freebies and things that we get in terms of those shards, I don't think has kept up quite with that. And so that I think has been the struggle for kind of retaining players. in addition to just having like a very complex and deep game.
I agree with all of that. I don't have much to add other than the at this point you're basically playing for PvP in all of these character releases. It's not for PvE content. You do not need Helena, this new unit, to clear virtually any PvE content, if you know what I mean. So I think that's where it's least healthy. That the incentive to pull units is literally from a meta chasing perspective. Can you just chase the next creep to beat a stranger on the internet, if you know what I mean? And that is no longer, it hasn't for many for a long time, but it's no longer worth that cost, if that makes sense. And that's why I've adjusted my gameplay. I know a lot of people have pulled out and done similar things. I think that's where it's least healthy, that they haven't given us enough opportunities to use these characters other than just PvP. And at this point it's becoming like a 1 month cycle. Every month it's just something new. I'll leave it at that. I think the most healthy, I think they're still kind of missing a little bit on the lore and the storyline stuff. They're getting better at it, way better at it. Actually, I'll give them props. Do more. Like, I can't see why you couldn't do more. This is such a the soundtrack is amazing. The script could use a little work, but like the characters are cool. The plot line's getting there. I think if you really dive into that, I think that could probably be a better shining point for being able to use some of these characters and whatnot. So I think it's my more generic answer. Because right now I think the PVE is it's either little too easy or it's way too hard and you need a votive calc because the game doesn't give you enough information to clear on its own. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like you have to use the status resistance or you have to use this one thing because like the boss is null to everything except this one thing. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a little too here or there, and that's fine if it's gonna be if the difficulty is gonna be hard to manage. That's okay. Just like make it a good story for those that want to play for story.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, they like we were just talking about the Veritas unit. They're going to take another stab at some PvE content with that. Maybe it'll be compelling. We'll have to see. I know that I've overall, enjoyed the reliquaries things. So
Yep.
we'll see when it comes.
Yeah, definitely. But that's all we have today. I know we ran a little long, but this is certainly a lot of fun stuff to talk about and catching up for last week, and hopefully give you enough to listen to for the next day or so. But yeah, any other final thoughts here leading into the next week? I think we covered basically everything we wanted here.
Nope. I would say that good luck if you're going to pull for Helena tomorrow. I will say though that by the time that Vivi rolls around in 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, whenever he shows up, she will probably be in the permanent pool and pullable on his banner. So, you could kill two birds with one stone. That's what I've been telling my guild as well. Personally, I am going to pull. I'm going to take a swing, but just keep that in mind.
Yeah, me too. I'll do the basic pulls. I don't know if I'll chase, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's it for now. Again, per usual, thanks for watching, everybody. Looking forward to another week of content, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a good night.